Most people think of vines as decoration. They imagine something attractive climbing a fence, softening an ugly wall, or filling an awkward corner in the yard. But what most gardeners fail to realize is that a vine is one of the most efficient food-producing structures you can have. Pound for pound and square foot for square foot, a well-chosen edible vine can outproduce almost any vegetable bed in the garden. The vines I'm about to show you are fast-growing, heavy-yielding, and in many cases they come back stronger every year without you ever having to start over. The real genius of vines is that they do not fight for ground space, they use vertical space instead. Fence lines, trellises, pergolas, chain link, old tree trunks, deck rails, porch posts, even the forgotten corners of a yard. These are all surfaces that are sitting there doing absolutely nothing for you. Every vertical surface you own is a food opportunity you probably have not claimed yet. After today, that changes. These are the 9 vines I would plant on an empty fence tomorrow morning if I had to start over from scratch. Number 1 is cucamelon, and this is the plant I recommend to people who tell me they cannot grow anything. Cucamelon almost seems determined to prove them wrong. Also called mouse melon or Mexican sour gherkin, it produces grape-sized fruits that look exactly like tiny watermelons and taste like cucumber with a bright little citrusy twist. The plant comes from Central America and has been cultivated for generations, long before modern seed catalogs decided to rediscover it. It grows quickly, climbs aggressively, and once it gets going, it can produce with shocking consistency. Start the seeds indoors 4 to 6 weeks before your last frost, then transplant once the soil is warm. The vines can stretch 10 to 12 feet long and ask for very little once established. Pest problems are minimal. Disease pressure is unusually low. The fruits come in by the dozens, then the hundreds. Under good conditions, one single plant can give you around 100 fruits in a season. At farmers markets, cucamelons often sell for premium prices because they are so unusual and people love the novelty. The real secret, though, is underground. By the end of the season, cucamelon forms a tuber. In zone 7 and warmer, you can leave that tuber in the ground and it will return the following spring stronger than before. In colder climates, you can lift it and store it somewhere cool and dry, then replant it the next year. That means year 1 gives you a harvest. Year 2 gives you an earlier, stronger start. By year 3, you are dealing with a plant that feels less like a delicate garden crop and more like a reliable food engine. Number 2 is tromboncino squash. And if you have ever watched zucchini collapse from squash vine borers, this vine could completely change the way you think about growing squash. Tromboncino is an Italian heirloom squash, also known as zucchetta rampicante. What makes it special is not just its shape, though the long, curved fruits are beautiful. What makes it special is its species. It belongs to Cucurbita moscata, the same species as butternut squash, and that matters because the stems of Cucurbita moscata are much denser and more solid than those of ordinary summer squash. Squash vine borers, which tunnel into zucchini stems and kill them from the inside, struggle to get through tromboncino's tougher structure. While other squash plants around it may collapse in midsummer, tromboncino often keeps climbing and producing. The vine can easily grow 30 or even 40 feet in a season if you give it a fence or strong trellis. The fruit hangs beautifully in the air and develops into a long, trumpet-like shape, often reaching 2 to 3 feet in length. Pick it young, and it behaves like a superior zucchini, firmer, sweeter, and less watery. Leave it longer, and it matures into a winter squash that stores well. In other words, one plant gives you two crops depending on when you harvest. And because tromboncino is too odd-shaped for most grocery store systems, you are unlikely to find it on a supermarket shelf. Growing it yourself is the way to experience it. Number 3 is Malabar spinach. And this is the vine for anyone who is tired of watching regular spinach bolt the moment summer gets serious. True spinach hates heat. It turns bitter, shoots to seed, and disappears right when many gardeners wish they still had fresh greens. Malabar spinach does the exact opposite. It is a tropical climbing vine that loves heat, loves humidity, and grows vigorously through the hottest stretch of summer when other greens have already given up. The leaves are thick, glossy, and slightly succulent, with a flavor reminiscent of spinach but stronger and more durable in the pan. It is especially useful for stir-fries, soups, and sautés because the leaves hold their texture better than ordinary spinach. Malabar spinach is usually ready for harvest in about 70 days, and the more you harvest it, the more it branches and produces. It is a cut-and-come-again crop in the truest sense. Studies have shown that in warm conditions, it can be extremely productive over a long season. What makes it even better is that it turns vertical space into a steady summer greens harvest. Train it up a trellis, keep snipping leaves and growing tips, and it just keeps going until frost. In colder areas, it is grown as an annual, but in warm climates, it often self-seeds. Even where it does not survive winter, saving seed is easy, and once you have it, you will probably never want to spend money on spinach seed again for summer greens. Number 4 is scarlet runner bean, and a lot of people grow it for the flowers without realizing how much food they are overlooking. Scarlet runner bean is one of the most beautiful edible vines you can grow, with vivid red-orange flowers that hummingbirds and pollinators absolutely love. But behind those flowers is one of the most versatile food vines in the garden. The young pods can be eaten like green beans. If you let the pods swell, the seeds inside become shelling beans with a rich, nutty flavor and striking purple-black mottling. Leave them longer still and they dry down into storage beans. That means one plant gives you 3 different food harvests depending on timing. Scarlet runner also fixes nitrogen, which means its roots work with bacteria in the soil to capture nitrogen from the air and improve fertility. So while you are harvesting from it all season, it is also quietly feeding the soil underneath. In warmer zones, the roots can survive winter and send up fresh growth the following spring, which turns this annual-looking bean into more of a perennial structure. Even in colder climates, the seeds are cheap, reliable, and easy to start. For something so ornamental, so productive, and so beneficial to the soil, scarlet runner bean is surprisingly underused. Number 5 is chayote, and this may be one of the most remarkable food vines on the whole list. Chayote has been cultivated in Central America since long before modern borders existed, and once you understand what it does, it becomes hard to believe it is not grown in more backyards. Every part of the plant is useful. The fruit is edible. The young shoots and tips are edible. The seed is edible. And after a few seasons, the plant can even produce starchy roots. A mature vine given enough room can produce somewhere around 80 to 100 pear-shaped fruits in a season. You do not start it from seed in the usual way. You plant the whole fruit, usually on its side or at a slight angle, with the sprouting end just exposed. The vine then climbs aggressively and can cover huge sections of trellis or fencing. In frost-free or very mild climates, chayote behaves like a true perennial. In colder climates, you can still grow it, but the first year is about establishment, and the second year would have been the real explosion if frost did not stop it. The fruits are mild, crisp, and versatile, fitting into sautés, soups, stews, salads, and stuffed dishes. The shoots are also edible and are considered a delicacy in some traditions. Chayote is one of those plants that makes modern gardening look strangely inefficient, because once it gets established, a single vine can produce more food than entire beds of more familiar crops. Number 6 is hyacinth bean, and this is the vine that stops people in their tracks. Deep green leaves, purple stems, vivid violet flowers, and glossy purple pods make it one of the most dramatic edible vines you can grow. It has been cultivated in Africa and Asia for thousands of years and is both beautiful and highly productive. The young leaves are edible as greens, the immature pods can be cooked like beans, and the mature dried seeds are used in cuisines across the world. It grows rapidly, often reaching 10 to 15 feet in one season, and it handles heat, drought, and poor soil with surprising ease. Like other legumes, it fixes nitrogen, which adds another layer of usefulness. There is one important note. Mature, dried hyacinth bean seeds need proper preparation before eating, including thorough boiling and water changes, because raw, mature seeds contain compounds that must be neutralized. Traditional food cultures have known this for centuries and handle it as routine knowledge. When properly prepared, they are safe and nutritious. For the gardener, what matters is that this vine delivers beauty, biomass, nitrogen-fixing roots, edible greens, edible pods, and edible mature beans from one planting. It is ornamental, functional, and ancient all at once. Number 7 is groundnut vine, and this may be the most historically important plant on this list, while also being one of the least commonly grown. Apios americana, often called American groundnut, is a native North American perennial vine that produces edible tubers underground and, under the right conditions, edible beans above ground. Indigenous peoples across eastern North America used and cultivated it long before European agriculture took over the landscape. The tubers are high in starch, but also unusually high in protein for a root crop, which makes them nutritionally significant. They form in chains beneath the soil and can be harvested in autumn by gently digging through the shallow runners. The plant is perennial, meaning once established, it comes back every year without replanting. It also fixes nitrogen, which improves soil over time, and it can handle partial shade better than many food crops. This is a plant that fed people on this continent for generations and then was largely pushed aside as European food systems took over. If you can find tubers or starts through native plant nurseries or specialty growers, it is worth planting simply because it represents a nearly forgotten piece of North American food wisdom. A groundnut vine is not just a crop. It is a living link to a much older food system. Number 8 is maypop, also known as native passion flower. This is one of the most beautiful and unusual fruiting vines native to North America. Passiflora incarnata is hardy surprisingly far north, often down to zone 5, and returns each spring from its roots. The flowers are extraordinary, intricate, almost alien-looking, and among the most arresting blooms you can put in a garden. But the real payoff is the fruit. The fruits, called maypops, are roughly egg-sized and ripen to a yellow-green exterior with sweet, aromatic pulp inside. The flavor lands somewhere between citrus and tropical fruit, with enough complexity to make you wonder why they are not sold widely. The vine spreads by root runners and tends to become more productive with age. It also supports pollinators and specialist insects, contributing to the ecological health of your garden while producing edible fruit. Leaves and flowers have a history of herbal use, especially in calming teas, and the seeds are edible too. Give maypop a fence, trellis, or arbor in zones 5 through 9, and it will reward you with flowers that stop people in their tracks, and fruit that most North Americans have never tasted fresh from the vine. Number 9 is Acacia, commonly sold as chocolate vine, and this plant perfectly illustrates how often edible potential gets hidden under ornamental marketing. Acacia cuignata is sold at nurseries as a fast-growing decorative climber, but many people buying it never learn that the fruits are edible. The vine grows vigorously, often 15 to 30 feet once established, and tolerates more shade than almost any fruiting vine on this list. That alone makes it useful for the parts of the yard where sun-loving food crops struggle. In spring, it produces small, fragrant, reddish-purple flowers, and in fall, the elongated purple-gray pods ripen and split open to reveal a sweet, translucent white pulp around black seeds. The flavor is subtle, delicate, and a little vanilla-like. In Japan, where the vine has a long history of cultivation, the fruits are considered seasonal delicacies. The young shoots are also eaten as a cooked vegetable, and the fruit skins themselves are used in traditional dishes. So here you have one vine that gives you spring shoots, fall fruit pulp, and edible outer skins, 3 different foods from a plant most North American gardeners buy for decoration alone. It does take patience because serious fruiting may begin in year 2 or 3, but once it settles in, it becomes one of the most undervalued edible vines you can possibly grow. The thread connecting all 9 of these vines is that they ask for relatively little once they are established. They do not demand prime bed space. They do not compete with your carrots, lettuce, or onions. They use surfaces that are often completely wasted. Fence lines, pergolas, rails, trellises, the side of a shed, an old tree trunk, even an ugly patch of chain link. These are all opportunities for food production that most gardeners overlook. Annual vegetable beds have to be restarted every year. They require fresh planting, fresh effort, and usually fresh expense. A vine, once established, becomes something different. It becomes a permanent or semi-permanent food structure. It is not just a crop. It is infrastructure. It is a part of the garden that gets more capable with time instead of less. If I were starting again from scratch, I would begin with one of these immediately. I would plant cucamelon if I wanted fast success in year 1. I would plant tromboncino if squash vine borers had ever broken my heart. I would plant scarlet runner if I wanted flowers, pollinators, and 3 kinds of bean harvests from 1 cheap seed packet. I would plant groundnut if I wanted to put something in the soil that might still be feeding people long after I'm gone. The point is not that you need all 9 tomorrow. The point is that one fence could become a food structure this season if you simply decide to use it. That is it for today. I hope you found at least one vine here worth planting, and I will